Manipur burning was far more than just a conflict between Kukis and Meitei. As the state was engulfed in flames, the doors of the state armory were left wide open, fueling the violence. The police, instead of protecting the innocent, escorted rioters into the heart of victims' neighborhoods. The notorious Armed Forces Special Powers Act, AFSPA, enforced selectively in the Hills region alone, further stoked the unrest. Furthermore, several associations that penned a letter to Rekha Sharma, chairperson of the NCW National Commission of Women's Chairman, shedding light on the harrowing exploitation of women since the outbreak of the violence in Manipur, received a callous response. Their message was penned a month before the viral videos depicting women being paraded naked. In a candid interview taken in August, Lien Gangte, president of the North American Manipur Tribal Association, NAMTA, talks to Irum Khan, confronting the stark realities underlying the violence in the state.
Hey Lien, thanks that you agreed for an interview. I do know that your wife has a surgery tomorrow. In spite of that, you agreed for an interview. Thank you for that. So I just wanted to know what is the current situation there? Like, have you been able to talk to any of your family members?
Off. So I think situation on the ground is not really that different. Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think right now, I guess in terms of the actual daily violence, we've not heard of any like flare up in the last day or two.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a very tense kind of calm
Mm-hmm.
because in terms of the actual arms that have been distributed um, in the general public,
Mm-hmm.
very few of that have been actually recovered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of any sort of political solution, there is, I mean, pretty much, at
Mm-hmm.
least in the public domain, there's no
Mm-hmm.
news of any progress.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
things are, yeah. Sorry,
Because
go ahead.
the government, especially the Prime Minister Modi, said that there is calm in the state right now. Would so you said, but there is calm, but there's tensed calm because the firearms.
No, that is yeah, that's complete garbage because that's and pardon my language, I didn't
That's
mean to
okay. No, that I understand.
yeah, because it's almost like you're talking about this calm at gunpoint, right?
Uh-huh.
So there is so you've got people like the Meitei majorities in the valley districts.
Mm-hmm.
They are separated. The Kukis tribals,
Mm-hmm.
like my people,
Mm-hmm.
they're on the other side of the hill district,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are the central paramilitary forces and the army who are like manning these buffer zones and keeping the two sides separate, right?
Okay. So the
And
central.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so and if you call that normal, to me, like that is not normal. That is
Yeah,
like
that is true.
it's kind of like saying, oh, like you're secure because like you put people in two different prisons. That kind of thing. I don't know if we need any analogy to understand it, but it's
Absolutely.
like a strange thing for the prime minister and like even the home minister to say or make these statements.
Uh,
Because it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you say it's strange for Prime Minister or Home Minister to make such statements, which is right because after all that happened and after the delayed statement, making the statement is almost like brushing away everything under the carpet. I feel. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and you mentioned about the firearms which were distributed in the public. Like, how did they go to such a vast majority in the public? How were they
That
distributed?
see, that
Mm-hmm.
is the like really alarming thing because yes, people always talk about it as if the 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 arms were given away
Uh-huh.
equally. And I will admit that there were arms that were taken from the Hill District police stations and armories.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, in terms of the magnitude,
Mm-hmm.
there is no comparison because in the valley,
Mm-hmm.
in the like the Métis dominated areas,
Mm-hmm.
armories of like battalions of the Manipur police, the 2nd Battalion Manipur Rifles, the India Reserve Battalion, the Manipur Police Training College armories. These were all just kind of, like the scale of the giving away or looting or like whichever way you want to put it, there's no comparison, right? So let's say,
would you be able to give me these three names again, please?
So the armories are like I've heard like the Manipur Rifles, the second Battalion Manipur Rifles, the Manipur Police Training College, and some India Reserve Battalion. All these are like Manipur State security personnel. Their armories have been opened, and like there's not even like a report of a single shot fired in kind of protecting these armories from like the mob that came to take the guns away. Right.
Okay.
So it almost sounds like they walked in and they were just like welcomed with open doors, and they're just kind of given these arms and ammunition. And the ammunition that like so far the numbers I've heard is anywhere from like 5 to 6 lakhs or 5 to 600,000 rounds of armory. And these are also not just rifles and some like simple weapons. These are like most of them are like all automatic, sophisticated weapons, including like RPGs and like mortar shells that have been taken away, and which we kind of see it being used in the battlefields.
Used in the do you when you say that these rifles are actually kind of given away without any defense made by the state, that means the state is sponsoring the riots, right?
Absolutely, that's what we've been saying from day one, because like we've known these from our own people who have kind of been eyewitnesses. It's just that like the media and like people who are actually gathering hard evidence, they take a while to kind of pay attention to that, and it's only now that it's kind of catching up. And even like reports from this ex-army major Amit Bansal, in one of his talks, he's mentioned like the number of arms and ammunition that's distributed in the valley. It's enough to supply a whole division of the army.
Oh my God!
So it's like that's like even now as we speak, there's like over 4,000 arms that are like still circulating. That there's no account for it.
So my God!
So it's
right. 4,000?
No, 4,000.
4,000.
I think the estimates I've seen are anywhere from like 4 to 5,000.
4 to 5,000. Okay, so there's no accountability there. Okay.
There's no,
So okay, that as you mentioned, and you feel and you strongly believe that it's a state sponsored right from the beginning, how it went.
Absolutely. There's no doubt, because we have video evidences where the state police were escorting the rioting mobs into tribal neighborhoods, right? And also now we also even recently in the Kangbai area there was a standoff because the Meitei women's group, the Mera Paivis, they were trying to breach the buffer zone, which was manned by the Assam Rifles, or these are like central military forces that are commanded by the Indian Army officers themselves, right? So they were trying to breach this area to go into the tribal district, right? And in that the rapid action force, the crowd control force, the central forces with the Assam Rifles, they fired back some tear gases, and everything I'm seeing right now, this is not just my story. This is all documented, like the media, like the video files exist. Whether it's the Indian Express or India Today Northeast, like they've got these documented. And when they were trying to breach the buffer zone, the central forces fired back some tear gases and different things, and in retaliation, the Manipur police commandos have fired at them, the central forces, and now there's a FIR registered by the Manipur police against Assam Rifles.
Oh my
so
God.
it's kind of like the direct, the blatant complicity of the state forces, it's not even just an allegation. And, there are hard evidences to suggest that these are things that are actually happening. It's not just people, witness accounts. These are I think there's very hard evidence at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I'm focusing in my article is about the women's issue, because we've seen not one, not two, there are many cases of women's rights being violated, and of course we all know about the three women. The videos went viral, but what is the situation like? What about the other women? Are there many stories which are untold? What do you think?
See, and to be honest, it's very sad that I don't think even us as an organization, NAMTA, the North American Manipur Tribal Association, we, I don't know if you've already been aware, and if you are, I'm sorry if I'm repeating some.
Please repeat. Yeah, we all are keen to listen. Yes.
So on June 12th, we were signatories to a letter that had gone to the National Commission for Women, which is led by the chairperson Rekha Sharma. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the commission,
yes.
but so in this letter we had in great detail documented 6 specific cases, including the one that went viral. And this is in June 12th, 38 days before the viral video surfaced. So we sent them specific cases, and one case I remember is a case of a 15-year-old girl who herself was raped. And she, I think, if I remember correctly, she was treated in a hospital in Kohima, Nagaland, the neighboring state. So we have at least the ones we know, ourselves directly is 6 unique cases involving several individuals. Right.
Would you have the copy of that letter which was documented?
I do, but I also want to check with the main author, who's also kind of part of our organization, if it's okay for me to share it.
Yes.
But see, yeah.
If it is okay, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because we all have heard, there are many more such stories which are being not said in the media. The videos went viral, and that is when the government woke up. We can't even say government woke up, because they are the ones who actually instigated. Basically, I want to know, what is the level, because women are being weaponized over there, they're being used as a weapon. So how that is one human right violation which I think all the countries, including Canada, should wake up to, because it's not just related to a country anymore, it's related to women. And what do you think has been the response of the Canadian government?
So far, the Prime Minister's office responded to a letter that we had written way back in May. This is even before we ourselves came to know of all the more detailed, especially the violence against women, specific to the larger conflict. So we did get a response from the Prime Minister's office, but it was more of an acknowledgement and kind of, saying that they got the letter and they're considering it.
It's a very formal thing. They didn't really get into the details.
They didn't get into the details. So I think we've started maybe now a little over a week ago. We started a petition on change.org to kind of request the Canadian Parliament to publicly condemn and publicly make statements in taking the Indian regime to task. Similar, along the lines of what the European Parliament did back in July, the week of July 12th to 13th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So where there was quite a bit of a debate in the European Parliament, and the resolution was passed the next day. So we're asking the Canadian government, as NAMTA Canada, and also we're asking the U.S. Congress as well for representatives to talk about this issue on the floor of the House when they reconvene in September.
Yeah.
So that is something we're actively pushing, and towards that for the Canadian Parliament at least. So we've started this petition. So far we've got
Yes.
over 8,600 signatories to the petition.
Great. And you're also having a demonstration on August 20th, right?
Yes, and that we're not organizing it, but we're supporting it in whatever way we can. And I think this is a number of different organizations that had kind of
I think set in, and I feel the Justice for All has taken initiative in this.
Yes.
Okay, just coming back to the questions. So you mentioned about the BJP and BJP MP Rajkumar Ranjan has not been allowed to talk in the parliament. He is not allowed. Many BJP MLAs are talking, but nobody is listening to them. What do you think? Is this the stage for next year's election?
It definitely sounds like it. It doesn't seem like the central government is interested in actually dealing with the issue. And not just R.K. Ranjan, but even the Mizoram MP, the lone MP from the state of Mizoram, who is the southern neighbor of Manipur, and Mizos and the Kukis that like the minority Christian tribal groups that I come from, we share we are very, very closely related ethnically. So the Mizoram government has been very, very supportive and have kind of taken our plight very, very seriously, even in terms of, I think there are over 6,000-7,000 internally displaced people who are taking shelter in Mizoram right now.
Oh, so the Mizoram is helping, which is good. Okay.
Yes. And during this debate, the lone MP's microphone was switched off, where he was not even allowed to speak. On the in the monsoon session of the parliament, and even whatever he said, and I remember him specifically saying in the Lok Sabha that he was commenting to the Home Minister's assertion that the Kukis have come from Myanmar, and he's just repeating the talking point of the Biren Singh government in Manipur. And to challenge that assertion, he said, something just as simple as, no, we're Indians, we're not illegal immigrants or refugees from neighboring Myanmar. And even what he said, if I'm correct, was expunged from the parliamentary records. Right. So this is why we're so distressed.
Because it's kind of
Sorry, go ahead.
Because it's kind of appearing to be a state-sponsored riots which happened in Gujarat in 2000.
Yeah, and even I think it's also quite well published at this point. But even in terms of defending why the Home Ministry has not sacked Chief Minister Biren Singh and has kept him in charge in the state and has not imposed president's rule, the Home Minister said, there's no reason to sack him because he has been cooperating with the central government.
Oh, that's...
So then our question is, if that's what he's doing, then is Amit Shah responsible for this state-sponsored program?
Yeah.
So when he stands up and he says, the Chief Minister of Manipur, who we consider is the architect of this state-sponsored ethnic cleansing and attempted genocide against our people, and the Home Minister is standing in the middle of Parliament and he's saying that this is he's not going to get rid of him because he has been cooperating. What does that mean? What does that mean? And in such a serious situation, the Home Minister, later on, he said it was a slip of tongue, but he accused the Kukis, or kind of blaming this fictitious organization called the Kuki Defense Front or something, which doesn't actually even exist, and kind of seeing that in one of the most serious debates in the Indian Parliament. And it just kind of feels like a very callous and intentional way of kind of eradicating our history, our existence. It's not just about this conflict resolution. It's almost like, or at least it feels like it's an attempt to wipe our history and our connection to the land itself.
But why do you think would the BJP be interested in eradicating the history of the Kuki? Like, what do you think would it gain from there?
That is a very difficult thing to answer because I mean I really don't know because I'm just kind of saying this based on
or could be
yeah, it's more based on like it doesn't make sense what they're trying to do, because we have a long history. We have a long history and our connection to the land.
Yes.
In Manipur, and like even with just our own oral traditions, we can trace back our ancestry 47 generations. This is not like anybody doing any archaeological or like historical study.
Yeah.
So our attachment to this land goes back to 600 BC by some accounts. And for them to easily say, okay, we're from Myanmar and like we have no connection to the land, it's very hurtful. And it's just kind of and what is more alarming, or what's more alarming than the physical attacks is that there's a like very very intentional attack on our history itself. And so even going forward in terms of making peace, it becomes very difficult because it's one thing if they acknowledge our humanity and we say, okay, let's come together, admit our mistakes and ask for forgiveness. So the whole process of truth and reconciliation is possible only after you acknowledge your the other party's humanity, right? So right now the huge challenge that we have from the Kukis Omi side is that our humanity is not even being acknowledged right now. They're saying, we're all illegals, we're all this and that, like we came, like the British brought us in, we're narco-terrorists, we're like all these epithets that are being thrown, thrown at us. I think that is what makes moving forward very, very difficult.
So that means you mean to say that the Kukis at a point are ready to come and acknowledge the mistakes which happened in the last few months and ask for forgiveness from the other side, and the other side is also agreeing to do that, but somehow it's not happening because the acknowledgement of existence of the history is not conceded.
No, I think that is not entirely correct because I think right now, because as far as the Kukis Omis are concerned, we are on the receiving end of this violence.
Okay.
So because the whole state machinery has blatantly supported the majority Meitei side, right? So whatever, even in the relief camps and whatever we're doing to support our people, the government, both the center and the state government, has zero input, right? So we're like through civil society organizations and through our like wonderful neighboring states like from Nagaland and Mizoram, they are the ones supplying us with livelihood and like sustaining us, right? So in this situation, like to talk about peace and reconciliation, I think I don't believe like any side is ready because if there is some readiness, like it is not like evident. The chief minister Biren Singh is saying, okay, let's forgive and forget. That's what his like most recent press statements are. But how can you forgive and forget without any accountability? For example, going back to the violence against women, like not the ones that were in the viral video, but there was another video where like two of the Kukis Omi tribal women, who these are Florence and Olivia, that's their English name. They were two women who were working at a car wash, who were hiding, for their lives in Imphal when the troubles first began in early May. but they were handed over to the Mera parties, these women vigilante groups in the Meitei society, and they handed them over to the mob of men who raped and murdered them. Their bodies are still in the infant morgue. They're not even a proper morgue, just a room. And their bodies are rotting, and now there are like all kinds of news about like a lot of the smell has gotten so bad that people are complaining, and their families don't even have access to bring back their dead bodies to give them like proper burial. So this is the scenario we're experiencing. So in this scenario, like when you say forgive and forget, what are you talking about? But anyway, so it's very hurtful.
Yeah.
And
I've not read, unfortunately, about Florence and Olivia that you just mentioned. Has it been covered by any media so far?
Yes,
It has been covered. Okay.
They have been.
Okay,
yes.
okay. So I'll go back to read those cases. But these cases are not coming in the front as much as they need to come, and that is one reason where like everyone should put in the voice because it should get stronger. I feel.
Yes, and that's why I really appreciate
Yes.
you taking interest and kind of talking about this. It's been talked about in certain media segments in India, but not enough to the detail that it needs to be talked about.
Yes.
Because it's not a resolved issue. That is the major thing. Because their families were very recently interviewed on Barkhadat's the Mojo Story channel.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I am familiar with that. Overall, how do you see the human rights just after Manipur? The Haryana, the High Court, where the High Court said that it's kind of a state-sponsored ethnic cleansing of the minority.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Where is India's human rights, rights? What is the level of human rights violations in India, and where are we going forward from here on?
I think it's abhorrent. I'm very scared. I'm very scared for the future of India. Because in the grand scheme of things, like whatever is happening right now to our people, we're just another instance, another example of how things can go so bad.
Yeah.
Because we're at the end of the day, the entire Kukis only population, we're not even 2 million. We're a very, very small community. So small that even if we get annihilated overnight, nobody would even notice in the larger scheme. Nobody even knows we exist for the most part. So in that sense, what is going on everywhere else is an indication of the larger issue. And without this atmosphere in the larger Indian context, I don't think Manipur situation would have gone so bad. The polarization, the attacks against any sort of minority, this whole Hindutva craze that has taken over India, where I really like the phrasing. I forget exactly where I first ran into it, but it was like this hysteria, governance by hysteria, where the majority people who are already ruling over the marginalized minorities, they're somehow afraid of the people they're ruling over.
Exactly.
It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So I think without this being rectified with a huge support and like voice from more like moderately minded and sane Hindus, I think I feel I'm very pessimistic about
India's future. The situation in Manipur would have been controllable and not be that bad, but it's because of the larger context and the larger platform where the minorities are being shown as the villains against the majority. The Manipur situation is no different, and it's happening at the level of state, but it's still can be taken in the larger context where the polarization is happening in the entire country. Am I right?
Absolutely. And, because in terms of the power, in terms of its military might, India is one of the top 5 countries in the world with that kind of military military resource. There are what I've heard is there are like 40 to 60,000 new central forces that have been deployed since the beginning of this conflict in early May. If the government was serious about actually stopping this violence and bringing about normalcy, they could have done it like in a matter of days.
So how do you think is the involvement of army in all of this? Because army was not called, and then what do you think? Like how things would have been different had the army been called earlier than
I
now?
think for somebody that's also very conscious about broader human rights, I think I find myself very torn in even making this statement because the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, the law that gave pretty much a free hand to the military to conduct its business. I think from a human rights perspective, I think we were very, very concerned and critical of it. But now the unfairness that has happened in this recent conflict is that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act have been removed from the valley districts of Manipur for quite a while. I don't remember exactly when it was removed, but that act is still in effect in the hill districts, right? So you basically have two sets of laws that are in effect in the hill and the valley.
So that is
the
a
army,
blatant discrimination. What you raised is a very valid point. If it's still applicable in the hill district and not in the Meitei Valley region, that is a blatant. And like it's like most of the Hindus, they like to blame it on Aurangzeb for having that tax on the Hindus and not the Muslim. I do not want to go in the history, but what the government is doing right now is nothing different from that.
Right. So then, I think that's also kind of, I think if you talk to any army or ex-army or you kind of listen to any of the army officers who come on different media channels and who express their, their opinions, like that's one thing they always cite, right? Is that in a civilian environment, like without the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, they have no authority to enforce any sort of to bring back normalcy, any sort of action. Like they need that legal framework to back whatever they're trying to do. Right.
Okay.
So the issue is, whenever the rules that are being applied in the valley are very different from what's in the hill. Right. So and you can see that it's just in the results. After the over 3 months of these arms that are circulating in the valley districts, like they've recovered only a fraction of it. Like a huge bulk of it is still in circulation, and there are also like some reports that some have been even smuggled across the border into Myanmar. So I don't have much detail in it to in detail on that to make a so I kind of just that's something I've come across. I don't have any concrete reporting on that that I'm aware of.
Do you think? Yeah. But do you think the Canadian government would? Do you see the Canadian government taking a stand, or is it too busy making bilateral trade relations with India? What do you think?
I think given the history of what Canada has done in the past, like despite whatever challenges we may have, I'm hoping the government will do the right thing because at the same time, when we're critical of the Indian regime, obviously India is the land of my birth, and I want India and Canada to have the best of relations, and as a democracy, as democratic countries, I think it makes perfect sense for the two great democracies to have wonderful relations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the point we're making is that this particular regime, the BJP government-led regime, has kind of turned India like in some analyst's view
Mm-hmm.
into, I think, what's called an electoral autocracy.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, if this is, how can in a democracy,
Mm-hmm.
like the member of parliament's microphone gets shut off,
Yeah.
and things like that. How can that be a democratic process?
Mm-hmm.
So it's so in that sense, I think I have hope
Yeah.
that the Canadian government will do the right thing
Yeah.
and criticize the government and take the government to task.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if they're trying to court India just to counterbalance China, in effect, what is the difference between what the West always calls communist China and what is happening in India? What is the difference? Both are getting very, very close in terms of their autocratic
dictatorship. Yeah. To put it in the right word, dictatorship.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, so thank you for this. I was just wondering if even if like some contents of the documented letter which you had sent to the National Commissions of Women, if you could have some pieces, not all the details of the victims, which is fair, but some pieces like just to give an overall situation about like what are the women undergoing in Manipur. Probably that would bring a lot more strength to my story. Would that be possible on your behalf?
I will work on that.
I don't need.
Can I get back to you?
Yes, I don't need the details of the victims. I just need to have an idea about like what are the women facing right now, and like how deep is the rot. That is what my focus is.
Sure.
I know that you have a surgery for your spouse tomorrow, and then you'll be busy with the demonstrations and other things. Take your time. Meanwhile, I'll just submit the story. But if you could just get it to me, then would be great.
Sure. I will work on that. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
Lien,
so
and
much.
all the best for the surgery. Thank you. I'll pray for your wife.
So much.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.